Hey everyone, it's Kelly. I am back with week 2 in my 2025 Project Life album. This week I'm going to be using the Ali Edwards Story by the Month kit. This is the January 2025 kit. And this is going to be a very real and raw type of process video. I did not really have my cards selected. I had a couple ideas in mind on what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to use these emoji face chipboard pieces. I just thought they were so fun. And I had a lot of pockets open this week because I didn't have a lot of journaling. This week, there weren't a lot of stories, mainly weather related stories. We had a lot of snow this week. I went to the library. There was some national news with Jimmy Carter's funeral, and then also the LA wildfires were really in the news a lot during this time period. And I had taken a couple screenshots. I also have a picture of a certificate that I received at work, and I just didn't have a whole lot to say. There weren't a lot of words going on, so I was trying to figure out how many journal cards I really needed and what I was going to do with all these empty spots. I'm really kind of at a point in my project life right now where I really am in between sizes. So I didn't really have enough photos for a double page spread, but I had too many for a single page. And I didn't want to do 9 by 12 project life because I'm so comfortable with 12 by 12. And I apologize if you can hear my dogs barking. Okay, let's try this again, see how long they're going to be quiet. So, back to the process video. What I'm looking at now is I was trying to figure out what I wanted to put behind those emoji chipboards. I really wanted to use the same pattern across all four pockets. And I went through some of my pattern papers. I was debating on using that hot pink pattern paper, but I thought it would just be too bright for the photos. And I decided to go ahead and just go into back into the kit, pull out some of the digitals, and I recreated a vellum card. I printed it on white matte paper and I recolored it to be more of a neutral color so that way it would have some pattern, but it wouldn't compete with those emoji faces. My idea was just to get those trimmed out, and then I was just going to add the emoji chipboards just directly onto those pattern cards. But once I get the emojis added on there, I felt like they were just kind of floating and they didn't really look grounded. So then I had to decide how I wanted to ground them on there. I thought about adding a word phrase sticker just underneath them, almost creating like a little shelf for them to sit on. But I decided to go back through the kit and I found these little banner die cuts. And I thought, okay, this could work. So I'm going through them trying to see if the colors will match okay. Then another problem I ran into, if you look on the top right hand side of your screen, the cards that I made match that fourth banner. So I needed a fourth banner. So I needed to try to figure out what design I wanted to use to create the fourth banner. So right now I am really just kind of taking a look at how things are balanced across the spread. I have that yellow emoji face chipboard, and then I also have that journal card on the top right hand side of the layout that I'm going to add my journaling to. It has a yellow plus sign. So I wanted to make sure that I had those two pieces on opposite sides of the spread. I also have that kind of dark dusky blue floral print in multiple spots across the spread. So I wanted to make sure I created a visual triangle with that. The floral print that is underneath my title card, that is actually from the previous week. So I use that as a filler card, but because it's vellum, you're able to see through it. The January title card, you're able to see through to that pattern, but I felt like the pattern was really muted with that January title card on top of it. So last week, if you watched last week's video, I had fussy cut out some of those floral pieces that match the floral that's throughout the kit from the packaging. And I am going to add that to the title card. And because it's on top of the January title piece, it'll really kind of pop out and stand out and it'll draw more attention and kind of make all the patterns look the same, even though the one in the top left hand corner is pretty muted because of the vellum, and hopefully all of that makes sense and wasn't too rambly. So I went and added all of my journaling to my journaling cards, and I used elements from the kit to for the 01, 02, 03 that I have kind of on both of those journaling cards. Again, trying to create some repetition, having those on both sides of the spread really kind of helps your eye jump around the spread. And now I am creating that fourth banner piece, and I'm using a leftover piece of vellum from last week. I'm going to use those other banners as a guide to make sure that I get that pattern placed at the right height. And I did that because they are so uniform across the page. I wanted to make sure that I had the same amount of pattern on each of those banners. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting all of those adhered down, and then I will add those chipboard pieces to the top part of those banners, the white part of the banners. And one other thing that I decided to do is I went back through my stash and I went into I think it was the Hello Story kit. They had these hot pink word phrase stickers, and I thought that they worked really well. So I just went through and kind of picked out some sentiments that I thought fit the spread, or, were generic enough that would work for the spread. And I'm going to add those onto the banners right where the pattern meets the white. I also forgot to mention that I did pull out a pink die cut from my stash, and that is from a story kit, I believe from last year. It's that hot pink color also, and I'm going to add it onto that journaling card with the 01 and the 02 on the left-hand side of the spread. I loved the color, thought it matched really well, and I thought it added a little bit of interest to that journaling card. I think that I may go back in and add just a little bit of stitching to the bottom of that die cut just to add a little bit more interest and to kind of just ground it to that card a little bit more. I'm also going to line up those journaling cards next to each other and try to get those chipboards in roughly the same height on each card. Again, just because everything is so uniform going across the spread, very linear, and I just, as close as I can get it. I didn't use a ruler or anything, just eyeballing it. Now, one thing I did forget to do is I forgot to journal about that certificate that I received. So what I did was I went back in, reprinted the photo, and I justified the actual certificate on the photo paper to the right. So that way I had some room on the left and I'd have an area that I could add journaling. Now I'm trying to decide how I want to do that. And when I can't make a decision, I usually jump to another part of the spread that I know that I want to do. So now I'm going to move on to stamping. Stamping is a big part of Project Life for me. I love using my stamps. I don't use them as much as I used to, but there's almost always stamping on my Project Life spreads. So I used a winter stamp on one of those winter scenes. I'm also going to use a news related stamp on this photo that I have the screenshots of the national news, what was happening. And I believe those are really the only two stamps that I add. Now, one thing I thought about doing was just trimming off part of that journaling card and adding it as an embellishment to the photo of that certificate. But the blue was just slightly different than the blue that's in the floral card, and I just didn't feel like I could balance it really well. It's just slightly off. So I'm going to go back into the digitals and I am going to reprint that portion of the journaling card again. And not only can I change the color of it to match the rest of that blue that I have going on in the spread, but I also can add some white text to it to add my journaling. Now, I did a few different color variations because whenever you print digitals, they never print exactly as the colors in the kit. So I printed a few different options just to try to see which one was going to work best. And I decided to go with this one. It's still not quite right, but it's good enough. So I added my journaling to that. I also kept the sentiment that was on the journaling card. I think it says something about this year I will. And the sentiment just really seemed to fit because this was something that I was really proud of. I took a 3-day training course for it, and then I had a 3-month trial period where I had to submit data to the state before I could receive my certification. And so all of my submissions were approved, so I was able to get certified, and it was a big thing for me. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I included it in my Project Life. I'm going to go ahead and get the dates added on to my title card. I am using StazOn since I am stamping on vellum. One thing that I am not super particular on with my Project Life is including week numbers each week. I do it more often than not, so if I don't have it on week 2 when I'm flipping through my album, I'll be able to tell by the dates and the pages that this is week 2. What I'm showing you here is when I reprinted that digital piece, it did not have that textured look to it that the original card did. And I thought that the printed piece looked really flat and I wanted to add a little bit of texture to it. So I went into my stamps and I have my texture stamps kind of all stored together, and I grabbed just this really kind of light it's almost like a polka dot print, I guess. And I used my white ink that is really dried out, so there wasn't a lot of pigment on there, and just added a little bit of stamping to that printed piece. And it added just a little bit of texture to it. And I really like how it looks. It's going to be hard to see in the photos and in the video, but in person you can see that it has some texture there. So here are the still shots. Please let me know if you have any questions. Again, I would love for you to leave a comment or subscribe if you are new to my channel. I always love hearing from you. Your guys' feedback and comments, they just bring me so much joy. So I would really love it if you dropped a comment. Let me know what you're working on. If you're working on Project Life or if you're working on something else right now, I would love to hear. And I will be back very soon. Thanks, everybody.